It was a quiet evening in Seoul, the kind of evening that seemed ordinary at first glance. Streetlights glowed softly, cars passed by in a rhythmic hum, and the air carried a gentle chill, hinting at the approach of spring. But inside one small, warmly lit apartment, something extraordinary was unfolding. Lee Min-ho, one of Korea's most beloved actors, was carefully chopping vegetables, his brow furrowed in concentration. He wasn't on set. There were no cameras, no fans, no flashing lights, no reporters. He was cooking. For Kim Go-eun. Not just any meal, but her favorite meal. A simple dish, yet filled with layers of care, thoughtfulness, and love. To anyone else, it might have seemed mundane, a home-cooked dinner for a girlfriend. But for Lee Min-ho, this was a way to show Kim Go-eun just how much she meant to him without words. The evening had started hours earlier. Lee Min-ho had gone to the local market, strolling through rows of fresh produce and aromatic spices, carefully selecting only the finest ingredients. He picked the ripest tomatoes, the greenest spring onions, and the freshest fish available that day. Each item was chosen with intention. Every detail mattered. Even the little things, like the way the leaves of fresh herbs were perfectly aligned, were important to him. Back in the kitchen, he arranged the ingredients neatly on the counter. The air filled with the gentle sizzle of olive oil in the pan, the aroma of garlic and herbs mixing with the faint scent of jasmine tea brewing nearby. He hummed softly, a tune that Kim Go-eun had once mentioned she liked but had never heard him sing in public. It was private. It was personal. It was theirs. He checked his watch. Kim Go-eun would arrive in exactly 30 minutes. The table was set with precision. 2 plates, 2 glasses, and a small vase holding a single white rose, a flower he knew she adored for its simplicity and elegance. Even the napkins were folded in a way that looked effortless, yet Min-ho had spent 10 minutes perfecting them. He paused for a moment and looked around. The apartment was quiet, the city noise muted by the closed windows. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine her walking through the door, the soft click of her heels, the gentle sway of her hair, the way her eyes would light up when she saw the effort he had put in. When the door finally opened, Min-ho's heart skipped a beat. Kim Go-eun stepped in, wrapped in a light coat, carrying her small bag. She smiled, but there was also a hint of surprise. "Lee Min-ho," she said softly, setting her bag down. The sound of her voice alone was enough to make him pause and feel a warmth spreading through his chest. "Welcome home," he replied, his voice calm but steady, betraying just a little nervousness. He gestured toward the kitchen, where the smell of the meal already filled the room. Kim Go-eun's eyes widened, and she stepped closer, taking in the sight of the table, the carefully arranged ingredients, and the single white rose. "Hey, did you?" she began, words catching in her throat. Min-ho smiled, a small, genuine smile that spoke more than any words could. "I cooked your favorite meal," he said simply. Her reaction was immediate. Her lips curled into a smile, and she laughed softly, almost in disbelief. "You did all this for me?" she asked, stepping closer. He nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. "For you, just for you." They moved to the table together, and he served the food with the same care he had taken while cooking. Each dish was perfectly arranged, each ingredient placed with precision. He handed her a plate and watched as she took her first bite. Her eyes closed briefly, a small sound of pleasure escaping her lips. "That's perfect," she whispered. "It's delicious," she added, her smile radiant. Min-ho felt a wave of relief and happiness. He had worried, of course. Cooking was not something he did often, especially not for someone else. But seeing her smile, hearing her voice, and watching her savor every bite made every moment of preparation worth it. As they ate, the conversation flowed naturally. They laughed over small jokes, reminisced about past trips, and shared stories they hadn't told anyone else. There was no need for grand declarations or dramatic gestures. The intimacy of the meal, the quiet joy in each other's presence, was enough. After dinner, Min-ho cleared the dishes while Kim Go-eun poured them both a cup of tea. They sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. He handed her the cup, and their fingers brushed. She smiled, and he felt a spark of warmth pass through him. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. For everything. For this. For you. Min-ho shook his head slightly, as if the words were too big to accept. It's nothing, he replied. But it's everything to me, she added, reaching out to hold his hand. They sat together, hands entwined, sipping tea and watching the world outside. The city continued its rhythmic hum, but inside their small apartment, time seemed to slow. It was just the two of them, sharing a moment that felt suspended from reality. Then, Min-ho surprised her again. From under the table, he pulled out a small box. Kim Go-eun's eyes widened in surprise. What's this? She asked. He smiled, a small, mischievous smile. Just a little something, he said. She opened the box and gasped softly. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet, each charm representing a memory they had shared, tickets from a movie they had watched together, a tiny book charm for her love of reading, a miniature teacup for the afternoons they spent drinking tea and talking. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her fingers brushing over the charms. You don't have to say anything, he replied gently. Just wear it, and remember that every moment we share is special to me. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she hugged him tightly. It was a hug that spoke volumes, gratitude, love, and the unspoken promise of many more moments together. Min-ho held her close, breathing in the soft scent of her hair, and realized that the simplicity, the thoughtfulness, the genuine connection, was more meaningful than any grand gesture or public declaration could ever be. Later, as the evening wound down, they moved to the sofa. Min-ho draped a soft blanket over both of them, and they sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the warmth of each other's presence. Kim Go-eun rested her head on his shoulder, and he gently stroked her hair, feeling a deep sense of contentment he hadn't felt in years. You know, she said after a while, her voice barely above a whisper, I've never felt so special, so truly cared for. He smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. You are, he said simply. Every day you are. The night continued with soft laughter, quiet conversation, and small gestures that spoke louder than words. He poured her another cup of tea, she rested her hand on his, and they shared stories about dreams, hopes, and everything in between. The meal he had cooked was long finished, but the warmth of the evening lingered, wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. By the time the city outside had quieted completely, and the streetlights flickered softly, they remained together. It wasn't about the food, the flowers, or even the bracelet. It was about the thought behind each action, the care in each detail, and the love that was expressed not through grand gestures, but through quiet, intimate moments. Lee Min-ho had cooked her favorite meal, yes. But more importantly, he had shown Kim Go